Hello, and my name is Jon Getz. I am here on behalf of the Monroe County Bar Association, and I have the privilege of having an opportunity to meet with and converse with Administrative Judge, the Honorable Craig Doran. Judge Doran, first I want to thank you for taking time out of your calendar to go through questions and concerns that we have as the courts are opening back up. And I know, Judge, that you will have some good answers to the general concerns as to what is happening in the 7th Judicial District.
Well, John, thank you for the opportunity to talk with you and talk with the legal community in our region. I want to assure everybody that throughout this pandemic, we have been engaged in an almost minute-by-minute decision-making process, balancing the need to assure safety of our court staff, our judges, court users, with the need to provide access to justice. I'm proud to say that we never closed the courts, but throughout the pandemic, we've been through periods of having to adjust our operations based upon the metrics of the pandemic.
What do you think are the 3 most important changes that attorneys should know about when we return to the courthouse?
The 3 things that attorneys should expect to see when they enter the courthouse is they will see, first and foremost, less foot traffic than they would during pre-pandemic times. Even though we're in a phase now where we're slowly and gradually restoring in-person operations, jury trials, and other proceedings, we are still far more limited than we were pre-pandemic. The bar should expect that many proceedings will continue to be conducted on into the future using the virtual technology that I think we've learned so much about. The second thing that folks will notice at the Hall of Justice is distancing. We're going to have markings everywhere in the building, in the hallways, in the waiting areas, in the courtrooms, indicating where people should be and assuring that people continue to maintain that recommended social distancing, which at the moment is 6 feet. Also, I guess I would say is the third thing folks will notice is the presence of PPE. We continue to require, as we have throughout the pandemic, anybody in our building has to be wearing a face mask. And also we have available, I know this is of interest to folks, we encourage people to bring their own masks, but in the event that somebody appears without their own mask, we've made efforts to try to have those available so that we can provide them to attorneys and litigants. We don't want to turn somebody away because they forgot to bring their face mask to the building. You'll also notice there's a lot of signage in the building indicating when somebody should not enter the building, if they are feeling symptoms or if they've had close contact with someone who's tested positive. You'll also notice that we're checking everybody's temperature upon entry to the building.
What's the courtroom look like? Has there been differences or changes in what to expect in the courtroom compared to 2019, for example?
Absolutely. You'll notice that the courtrooms are marked for distancing, and folks cannot sit where they ordinarily would. So jurors, for example, have to be appropriately distanced. So you cannot have 12 jurors sitting in the jury box. They will be spaced out. And some of them will be sitting outside of the jury box. You'll also notice that there are several of what would customarily be places for spectators to watch the proceedings. We have those marked so that people can't sit there because we have pretty strict limitations on the number of people that can be in a room at any given time. And under our current protocols, that limitation is under normal circumstances 30 people in the room or 1/2 of the fire code capacity, whichever number is less. Exception to that is if it's a jury trial, we allow 40 people to be in the room because you need to have more people in the room. We only expect during this current period of time to have no more than 3 jury trials going on at any given time. Generally speaking, either 1 or 2 of those trials will be a felony criminal trial because we've had to give priority to those cases where a defendant is incarcerated. We have to move those matters along. The third slot will be utilized for civil trials, civil jury trials, and misdemeanor trials in the lower court, in city court. We're using the larger rooms for those trials. We also make available to folks, we have disposable face shields for particularly for use during a proceeding where someone is testifying. So for momentary periods, if the person needs to remove the mask, they may do that only for brief periods, as long as they have the disposable face shield on. We don't have a lot of plexiglass in our courtrooms. We do have them in areas where the public is interfacing with court staff at a counter if they're filing papers, but we don't have our courtrooms equipped with plexiglass. The reason for that is early on, we had conversation with public health experts, is that a face shield, a plastic face shield, provides just as much, if not more, protection from the spread of the droplets than a sheet of plexiglass is actually not providing that level of protection.
That's great to know. And Your Honor, one of the questions that came up was, as attorneys, do we need to social distance with our clients, or what's the policy for that, especially in a trial where many times, as you know, we're close together with our clients?
So we certainly understand that, well, we have these protocols and these rules in place, and we expect everybody to adhere to them. Very clearly, an attorney must communicate with their client. And that communication will, in some instances, require the parties to be closer. So we ask that that not be done on a regular basis. We ask that during the trial, for the most part, you remain 6 feet from each other. But in those instances when you need to speak with one another, there's always the possibility of taking a recess and going somewhere else to have the conversation. The judge presiding in the proceeding, we expect, will exercise their discretion in allowing things to occur that the Constitution requires, like a defendant participating in their defense.
Excellent. And Your Honor, just as a follow-up to your point with juries, especially with criminal cases, or if it's for lack of a better term, a more serious charge, felony, where you may have the need for a higher jury pool coming in, do you know how many jurors are actually allowed into the building at a given time?
So our commissioner of jurors in Monroe County, Chuck Perot, has been extremely vigilant about these requirements, and we have limited the panels. We limit them in half-day periods. We're not going to be bringing in more than 50 jurors at any given moment, and that's significantly less than you would have seen on a normal Monday morning at the magnetometers pre-pandemics. And then we are endeavoring to limit the number of jurors that actually go to the courtroom to begin the process to somewhere around 35 jurors per half-day increment. And we've been doing that now for 3 weeks or so and have been very successful. We have completed many felony criminal trials through to verdict once these juries have been seated and sworn.
It's very helpful.
Yes.
What would you say, Your Honor, this is kind of a little bit of a technical question, what are the changes in the way exhibits are handled during trials?
So obviously, if it's an in-person trial, and criminal trials must be in person, the exhibits have to be handled with great caution. So we have gloves available. We have frequent cleaning going on in these courtrooms where we have the trials occurring. Everything gets cleaned twice a day. We have more frequent deep cleaning if there's a reason to call for that. We certainly do that between matters if a jury trial concludes, and we're going to start another one. If it is a virtual matter, and many of our proceedings, many trials each week are being conducted virtually in this district and others across the state, it's up to the presiding judge to be creative in the use of technology as to how to handle exhibits. I will talk about something I'm very enthused and excited about, which is this virtual evidence room that is right now being piloted in matrimonial cases. The 7th District was a pilot for it before it was rolled out statewide. Right now, it's been rolled out statewide in matrimonial cases. It's actually part of the state e-filing system, so that documents can be uploaded in cases that are e-filed and kept in a separate place. They can be manipulated, moved around, received into evidence, marked for identification, all as part of this virtual evidence room. So my hope is that we are able to expand that fairly soon, with other matters occurring now virtually. And of course, there will also be hybrid matters. There will be those matters where we're going to have some people appearing in the courtroom and then some people appearing virtually. So I think this technology is with us to stay.
Eventually, I think it will end up streamlining and hopefully making trials go faster.
It absolutely will. And there's a use for it in-person trials as well.
I agree.
Evidence.
Has there been any changes in renewing the attorney passes, if you're aware?
No, there's been no change. Those continue to be handled in the same way. And there is still a line for people with those passes to go through. Those passes are issued in the same manner as they were pre-pandemic, and they're renewed in the same manner as they were pre-pandemic.
Even with the pass, attorneys still need to be temperature checked.
Yes, everybody. Judges, court staff. When we enter the building every morning, we have to have our temperature taken and checked. So every single individual entering the building must have their temperature checked, regardless of whether or not they've been vaccinated, regardless of where they've traveled to. Every single entrant has their temperature checked.
Monroe County Hall of Justice has a really useful and nice law library on the 5th floor. Is that open? And if so, is it limited?
So the law library, the 5th floor, the area that most of you would have known of as our law library, has been completely renovated. It is about to open. We expect at some point in May, the entire area will be reopened. The law library, as you knew it, will be the newer law library is much smaller. As you recall, for those of you that were there, a lot of books that people haven't looked at in decades, and frankly, a lot of wasted space. So we have actually repurposed that space to add 2 new courtrooms, which I think the bar will like. They're going to be newer, modern courtrooms equipped to hopefully take us into the next few decades. But I also, and this may be news, we may be making news here, one of the additions in the area that used to be the law library will be an attorney's area, an area that will be available exclusively for attorneys to be able to utilize, go in there with their laptops and do some work if they want to. I was in the space yesterday, and I really do think the bar is going to love this availability. We are also adding 2 attorney conference rooms so that attorneys will have an opportunity on the 5th floor to consult with their clients. We also have a space available for the help center. So the help center, there'll be a counter accessible to the public in what we're now calling, it's what used to be the New York room. So that space will continue to be available. That's where our librarian, Tim Hunt, will be, and that's where the counter will be in the help center, and that's where the New York collection will be, and some other limited statutes that folks might need to have immediate access to.
That's great news. It really is. I think you're right. A couple of interesting questions that came up that are kind of practical. I've got a client. Where do I tell him or her to park, if you know? And what do I tell them about food? What can we do about parking, food, and beverage?
So parking, the parking area, the Civic Center garage right below the Hall of Justice, unfortunately, there's a fee you have to pay. So court users, court employees, that's the primary parking area for people coming to the Hall of Justice, primary area for jurors coming to the Hall of Justice. The rules about food in the building, I'm not aware of any changes. Obviously, we don't want people sharing bottles of water and things of that nature. But when you come through the magnetometers, certainly there'll be limitations on what people are allowed to bring into the building. So, you won't be able to bring sharp objects. You won't be able to bring things that could possibly cause harm to somebody in the building. And bags are checked at the magnetometer. So, if you want to bring some items of food in, but I don't believe there's any limitation that did not exist pre-pandemic.
Very good.
I want everybody to know, practitioners, court users, judges, court employees, the general public, that the safety of people in that building is our paramount concern. We obviously have a job to do, all of us. We have to provide access to justice. There are statutory time constraints. There are emergent matters that need to be addressed, things that actually relate to the safety of people in our community. So we're mindful of our obligation to continue to provide that access as we have throughout the pandemic. But I want everybody to know that we are engaged in a constant process of balancing those interests and assuring that we're striking just that right balance between safety and access to justice. And these are carefully thought out decisions, consulting with attorneys, with judges, with court staff, with medical personnel, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to strike that balance. We expect that we will continue to be able to make our way gradually to more in-person operations, but things aren't going to be like they were before. Things are going to be better than they were before. We're going to be using more virtual technology, which I hope will provide much more convenience to members of the bar. Court conferences, they should be done virtually. You shouldn't have to pack up your briefcase and come over to the Hall of Justice for what is a conference with a judge. So we're going to be looking at ways to make ourselves better into the future. And I want to thank the Bar Association and you personally, Jon, and all of the audience watching this today for being patient with us. We are not perfect. For most of us, I think probably all of us, this is our first pandemic. This is the first time we've been through this. We're doing our best. We're trying to be smart. We're trying to keep people safe. So to those that have been walking this journey with us and being patient with us, thank you.
And Your Honor, I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank the courts. I've been proud to be an attorney and work with judges, because as our profession has pivoted so well in challenging times, and everybody's trying so hard to keep access to justice moving. I've seen so much positive because of that, the pivoting that's going on, that the court says, okay, we have a problem, how do we fix it? And the perfect example is the virtual evidence rule. We appreciate all that you and the courts have done to help us, help our clients, and help the system. And thank you so much, Judge. I can't wait to see you in person in court in the not too distant future, following all the rules.
Same.